Make a motion that we return from executive session.
I'll second.
Pearl, did you get that? Any discussion? There being none, all in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for waiting. We're going to move on to reports to the Board of Education, and I will turn it over to Mr. Colabufo. I believe he has a presentation for us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, again, for a little transparency and clarification, and anytime we can help with communication, there has been some question about middle school and what they were doing with what was the academic advisement time. It's being called something different, as now they've gone to flexible scheduling, which was a big push from the teachers as they had visited other places. So what I did is I talked to Mrs. Galvan about it, and we thought it would be a great idea to have our middle school principal, Matt Penrod, have a minute to be able to discuss that.
The operative word was a minute.
I'll read fast. The idea for what we're calling achievement time actually began a couple of years ago. The district was part of a response to intervention grant, and one of the things with the response to intervention is a little bit of a struggle sometimes with middle schools due to schedule. Yep. I only got that. So
Hey, I can help you.
Yeah, for everyone that might be listening online, Mr. Penrod's going to use the microphone and catch you back up to speed, since it will definitely be for your benefit.
We actually started talking about what we were doing with advisement time a while ago. About 2 years ago, we received a response to intervention grant. People from all across the district participated in it. And looked at different methods of providing response to students who needed additional help and support. Middle schools are a place where there's not too many successful response to intervention programs, and part of that has to do with the schedule, because we're locked into a period-by-period schedule. So we brainstormed some ideas about how we can make use of our advisement time as far back as 2 years ago. Then as we got involved in looking at flexible scheduling, and teachers got really interested in that piece of the puzzle, the idea was to kind of blend those two things. The elementary school, especially, AIS and intervention times can be pretty fluid and are pretty fluid. You'll have students who move in and get intervention in a particular area, let's say math, for a week or two, and then move back out based on how their schedule is and when they can do that. I've seen students do that first thing in the morning when the rest of the population isn't in session, but we don't really have time like that at the middle school. So we wanted to make use of the advisement time like that, and so what we've done is, for the students who are available in what used to be advisement time, and keep in mind that's not every student, because students are taking band, chorus, resource, some intensive AIS classes, some are taking biology lab, things like that. So there's other classes going on at that time, so we're not talking every student. But the students that are left, how can we provide some flexibility for them? And how can we do things that will also enrich them if they're open to enrichment, if they have interests outside of what's going on? So there's actually some sample schedules on the second and third to the last pages in the handout that I gave you. And those are just sample schedules, because this is really a teacher-driven thing. So the teachers they've got kind of a baseline to work with here, but they're able to schedule the students as they need them, as they see them. There are times that they have to provide AIS to some of the students. But the other times, there are times when students can go see them, get extra help that they need extra help with, or the teachers can work amongst themselves and say, okay, I know I've got this group of kids based on my assessment data or based on the homework that we did yesterday. I need to pull them in during that achievement time and really work on a particular skill with them. So it's very flexible, unlike our AIS program where it's much less flexible. They have to stay in there until they test out. This is a way to get intervention to them. And teachers are looking for ways to provide enrichment. What we hope to work towards is student-directed enrichment and things they're really interested in, but we're also starting with, okay, where's the teacher's comfort level and how do we get to that point? But teachers have had some really good ideas. The last page is some brainstormed ideas. You'll see there's a lot of stuff for enrichment time ideas. We started formally more working on this with a small group of teachers last year. As the year went on, as you know, there's been a lot of change in leadership at the middle school, and there's been a huge change in teams at the middle school. it would have been a possibility to hand them, here is exactly what you're going to do at the beginning of the year, and here's how you're going to do it. But if you want people to buy into change, they need to have a hand in the change and a way to work with it. So we think we're providing an opportunity for kids to still get help, and also a way for them to get some enrichment if they're not involved in the course of their time.
Two areas, if you can just touch upon, because I know this has been an issue on Facebook. I'm hearing about this. One of them was, is it graded?
There will be progress reports that go home with the students in AIS at that time. There's progress reports. It will not appear on report cards, but it will be something that you get a report home so you know, okay, what have they been working on in the enrichment time, or what have they been working on if they're getting interventions in that time.
So then that just is further communication for the parents on what they're doing at that time. And the second point was there was a concern that if a child was struggling with something on homework, that they couldn't ask the teacher for help on that, but you clarified that. If you could just do that publicly.
The teachers are available. You'll see, depending on whether you're looking at the 7th grade schedule, sample schedule or the 8th grade sample schedule, you will see that there's AIS on the team that maybe the math teacher provided, but we've talked to them and they're very able to pull kids into that time, even if they're not formally scheduled for AIS in that time to provide intervention. And we've also already started talking about, we really have to look at the quality and the quantity of the homework that we're getting. The goal is when you send homework home that it's a skill that kids have mastered, not a skill they're going to practice wrong and master wrong. So we've got the time in there to work on it with them, and we know we have to look at the quantity of what's getting sent home.
Where I think there's some confusion is I think some kids are saying to their parents, well, we can't work on our homework there. And that's not what it is if a kid is struggling with something on the homework, a skill, but it's not a study hall.
It's not a 44-minute study hall
right.
Where it's self-directed, and that's all you're going to do in that time.
I think that clarifies that.
Does having this enrichment eliminate study halls for the kids in the 7th and 8th grade?
It eliminates advisement. There are still a few kids who have study halls based on individual schedule, but there aren't. Most 7th and 8th graders do not have study halls.
And like you said, when we discussed it earlier, just 7th and 8th graders have this, correct?
This is just 7th and 8th grade.
So how are they identified as if they need help? Do these kids need to be proactive to say, I need help in this class, and they go down? Or are these teachers pulling them in?
It would be a combination of both. We would love it if students were proactive, but we also know that some are not going to be. So students have the ability to request to go, I really need help with my ELA homework today, or I really don't get this concept in ELA. So they can request it, but the teachers are going to be identifying them. We've focused on having flexible team time, more team planning time, so they can really communicate as a team and look at what the kids need so they can plan around the students' needs, not just what the schedule says they're supposed to be at.
Okay, and being a new program, I know you're still trying to figure out everything. So if they're not identified as AIS and they're not needing any particular help, are they doing just busy work, or are they able to utilize that time once this gets going to actually do the homework? I know you're saying less homework, but are they going to be able to use that time to finish up what they have?
The goal is to have them do enrichment activities, some of which would be self-directed, like Board of Ed goal number 1 is really to increase instructional engagement. And that's one of the ways to do it, is to have student choice and do more project-based learning and more STEM activities. If you're familiar with erector sets, or if you ever had those spring-loaded science kits as a kid, we've gone way past that to these things called little bits, which are kind of like electronic Legos that snap together in different formats, and coding opportunities, and things for kids to really explore and look at different skills and areas that, okay, you may not be able to go that far in technology class, or you may not be able to really get into the nitty-gritty coding in the computer basic skills class. So we're going to offer you these opportunities to explore some of those areas.
So is it all, you're giving us different ideas. Is everybody doing that all at once, or are these teachers picking and choosing what they're doing when?
They'll be picking and choosing, again, the sample schedules in there, or sample guidelines kind of for them to go by. But if they feel like, okay, instead of having this group every other day, I want to work on my team and I want to have this group for 3 weeks at a time, they'll have the ability to do that as well.
Okay, just my concern, it sounds like great things, but if you have some teachers saying, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and then we have, maybe this set of teachers saying, well, we'll do this just for a little while, but then after that you have 20 minutes every day to work on your homework. Because we did, as a board, extend the day. So these kids are getting out later. They still have after-school programs. They're having less,
The middle school day is not changed.
but they're sitting up here. They get off the buses and then they're sitting at the high school.
No, their time hasn't changed at the middle school.
Well, my daughter, she's still the first one off, and she's getting out later. She's still getting home later. Most of the kids that I've talked to who are being dismissed, they're getting dismissed earlier, but then they're coming up to the high school because the dismissal times here.
Well, right.
We're a little-
They used to start at the high school and then go to the middle school.
Right.
Now
So they don't have as much time at home, I guess is what I'm saying, if they're in different sports activities or whatever. So some of these, I'm just concerned, some kids might have time to do homework in school, whereas other kids might not have that opportunity, and then they're still trying to cram in all their after-school activities. So I just wanted to make sure that if one person is giving this, then it's all.
Right, that we need to be consistent about it, we need to clearly communicate, what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, because what it was before was they were just picked up at the high school and then gone over there, and then the middle school kids would come up, but they were still getting home.
What essentially I'm saying, though, is we pushed to make sure that all the high school kids are getting this extra help, this extra academic time, so they're doing their homework during that. Yet we're taking away academic time at the middle school.
I hear what you're saying, but that's not why we put academic advice time into the day. It's not that they're just doing homework. I mean,
It's to get the extra help.
Yeah, it's skill-based. And
They still have that time to do that. And
Sure.
they do. There's a lot, I mean, we did it so they can get the help if they need it, but there's just as many kids who maybe not need that help, so they utilize that time.
And I do. I get that. The thing that we just can't lose track of is that this whole thing came from the teachers and a push that started several years ago, and they visited other schools, and it's a way to be innovative. There will always be people that say, nope, let's go to the traditional way, and let's make sure that the kid has a study hall. So I want to address both of those needs, because I hear what you're saying.
But I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm
Yeah.
saying consistency,
Right,
whereas
right.
whether it's a team, this team does this, or
Yep.
maybe just this teacher, if one's going to do it, they're all going to do it, so we don't have those
Yep.
concerns.
That it's consistent and across the board.
Right.
I hear you.
Tom, one point of clarification. Did you say on social media there's a concern that kids don't feel they can go to teachers for help? Did you say?
No.
No, okay.
I think the concern was that there was confusion about this new time, and that in that,
For
by that
homework
change,
help.
that they no longer had the ability to go to teachers for help. At least that's.
We'll be clarifying that, as we move forward, there's definitely going to be changes and clarifications on the teacher standpoint, but we also have our 7th and 8th grade meet the teacher night next week, where the teachers will be sharing and clarifying instead of relying necessarily on.
Yeah,
the 7th
what the
grade.
question, what the concern on Facebook was about homework, of them saying this was a time that our children were able to do their homework during that time, but then some people were confused and was like, no, the kid can still ask a question like, I'm struggling on this, can you help me why I struggle on the homework, as opposed to looking at like a study hall and say, you just have this whole time to just do study hall stuff. I think that's what the
Okay,
confusion.
and I just wanted to clarify, the only reason I wanted to clarify is I know a significant amount of teachers in this district, and I would argue there's not one teacher that wouldn't give whatever help to any student in
absolutely.
this community. That I can say personally, without a doubt in my mind. So
Absolutely.
if there's any questions out in the world out there,
Yeah.
that your child needs help, ask for help and they'll get it.
100%.
Yeah, and I just had a question about the last page as far as these overall ideas. I mean, are we on, as far as what enrichment time ideas are? We're pretty excited about that. I mean, I'm looking at the list. It's a pretty good list.
It is, and I think we may have done the enrichment time list when we, before the academic time list, and I think we got a little tired in between there, but there's
Right.
a lot of great ideas on there, and I've heard a bunch more since the staff has really started talking about it with their new teams. A lot of different ideas, besides just the ones that the small group brainstorm. A lot of different opportunities for things that kids are interested in and things that teachers are interested in that we don't have time for necessarily right into the classroom.
Yeah, I'd be kind of excited to see, after, mid-year to see how many of these got covered and what was a success and what was.
Compile a list of what's going on, what sorts of things. It'll be a little early for our board report to do that, but
Okay.
definitely share that.
All right, look forward to it. I think it's a great idea.
Matt, can I just ask a question? So now, under achievement time and enrichment ideas, now, is chorus going to be part of that too? Chorus and band?
This is happening at the same time band and chorus are happening.
Okay.
So those are enrichment opportunities that those kids have.
Okay, so that they don't have issues that they need help with certain things, they can go ahead and
Yeah, they're
do
still going to
this?
be in band or chorus if that's where they
Okay.
wanted to be. This is the students who are not in band or chorus.
All right,
schedules, you know, we run an A-B schedule basically, except it's 6 days to end the confusion. But we knew we couldn't just run only this on A days and only this on B days, because then we would miss out on kids who had band that day or chorus on that day. So we're looking at how do we run it by days of the week, so there's opportunities for everybody to participate. It doesn't have a full schedule.
And the really exciting thing about this is it was the teachers themselves from the middle school had come up and talked to the administration and said, look, sometimes I'm teaching math. I don't need the full time today. Then I can give more time to my partner. I can push in there. I mean, this is right from the teachers, and we were excited because they're all excited about it. So it's great to be able to do something that they want to do.
I just have one more. You said this wasn't graded, so do you have any idea how you're going to reassess this? You know, if this has been a positive change, I'm not saying it's not, but how impactful, are we going to look at this again, say, is it the end of the year? Are you going to go 6 months in and say, are the kids benefiting from this? Like, how are we identifying?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, and in talking to administration, I would like to be able to do a student survey, parents survey, teacher survey, because I've had a lot of students say when I'm chaperoning things with middle school kids, we wish we'd have an opportunity to get more into robotics, more into coding. So this was a way for those enrichment opportunities, but then at the same time, we want to make sure, like what Tim is saying, if a student is really struggling with something in the homework, we have amazing teachers, and we want to be able to provide that opportunity. That's a skill that specific child needs more help with. So it's going to be great to look, and we haven't figured out the duration that we're going to do all of these. We don't want to keep inundating teachers and parents and students with surveys, but we want to be able to give it enough time that we can look at and then assess and say, okay, how can we tweak this? How can we make it better? So that's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, and so based on that, I would just add one comment, which is, and again, I love the idea, and I'm glad we're trying it. But if we're going to measure that, then we ought to also, you administration, I'd encourage you to also pay attention to, does it have an impact? Because we're saying basically that chorus and band kids then are not going to get advantage of that. So will it impact enrollment in those programs? Just something to consider as you go through it. So.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the clarification. All right. That is the only presentation or report to the Board of Ed. So we're going to move on to our open forum. The Board of Education has set aside this time as an opportunity for the community to address the board. To allow for public participation, a period not to exceed 30 minutes shall be set aside during the first part of each board meeting. Presentation should be as brief as possible. The board will not permit, in public session, discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Comments should be related to school matters and be limited to 2 minutes. Tonight we have one blue card, Mr. Rich Creamer from Brewerton, and the topic is a quick support chat. Perfect.
Evening, Board.
Hi.
Mr. Collins.
Hello.
I have a bit of a prepared statement. I understand that the Board of Ed is scheduled to discuss and approve a newly created administrator or dean position at our high school. We appreciate that you have recognized the need and are looking to support administrators so they can be effective, with the hope that ultimately our students will be more successful. We also know that as teachers, we are continuously being asked to do more with less, in part due to a decrease in staffing and in part due to district and state initiatives. We are seeing larger class sizes, an increase in course loads, increases in the numbers of students with accommodations in classes, additional testing and state mandates, as well as district mandates. As teachers, we want our students to be as successful as possible, but we need your support. We see that you're recognizing needs at the administrator level, and we hope that you have or will begin addressing needs of teachers so that our students can be successful in the classroom as well as with post-graduation. As teachers, we would like to better understand the board's philosophy on class sizes, course programming, technology, and other issues and concerns that are important to those who are on the front lines each day of the week. We ask that you are open to and ask for teacher input and suggestions when it comes to decision-making impacting the classroom environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creamer. If you haven't already, would you be able, since you had prepared comments, would you be able to give a copy of that to Pearl? Because you listed some things you'd like the board's input on, so I'd like us to have a chance down the road to address those with you.
Certainly, I can pass this copy along to you right now.
Great, thank you. All right, being that there are no other blue cards, this is now the open forum for the board itself. So I'm going to start to my right and work our way this way. Mr. Loy, anything you'd like to bring up? No? Mrs. Fishman?
I thought we weren't calling on each individual.
I'm doing it tonight because I know there's a couple. Mr. Bedworth?
Yeah, I've got a few things that I'd like to, just a couple of them are clarifications and then just a little comment of my own. Data room cooling for all the elementary schools and stuff. Do I remember correctly that that's part of this whole project that we're in the midst of trying to get going? No?
air conditioning for all
Yeah,
of us?
yeah.
No, I said that was something that we would look into, and the price came back. What? How many millions of dollars? What? Yeah. and
Okay, okay.
So, right.
So right now, we're just holding on that then? Because I know we're going to need to do something.
Well,
eventually.
yes and no. We're not just holding it. What we're doing is we're
Okay.
looking at different places where we can put fans that would bring warm air out, which could significantly impact we don't have those fans in certain places, so it would change the temperature and the way that the students feel in those rooms. We were also looking at what it would be in King for us to look at designated areas on days that it is extraordinarily warm, like air conditioning the gym and the library and places like whole areas where if it needed to be, they could bring students down on those days that the weather is just it's above and beyond in those rooms. Because not every room is affected by that. Some rooms you walked in, it could be extremely cool. In the same building, it could be really, really warm in there. So what can we do to be able to provide a place for those people to go?
Okay, so it's something we're working on.
Absolutely. We're looking at King and we're looking at different possibilities that if we were to do something long term, how can we start chipping away at possibly air conditioning? Like, what would that even look like?
Okay.
Yeah, because there's some concern because we don't have, a lot of our buildings do not have forced air.
They
So
don't.
that would be a whole,
Yeah, we're dealing with buildings that are, for some schools to make that transition, they had forced. It was an easy thing to do. They put it in, they paid the money. We don't have any of that infrastructure in the building to be able to do that, and that's not part of the capital project because that would literally be the capital project. That would be all the money.
No, I'm more concerned with just the data rooms where the switches and stuff were, because the immediate rooms there get very.
I know,
warm.
and we have that. That will be cool. That is part of the capital
that's what I
project.
thought. Okay.
All the data, all of the servers, absolutely.
Okay,
Or
that's
else
what I thought.
they would fry the machines, correct?
Yeah, that's what my concern was.
But we still care the concern about the students, so therefore, we want to look at places that we can put fans to bring up the warm air and get it out.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
I just wanted, that was just to clarify for myself. I did talk to you a little bit about the band bus, and I know that you guys are working on that, but,
Yes.
I mean, it's getting a little bit embarrassing at this point. I mean, that bus is from probably when I was a kid.
Yeah, so I got the email. If Mr. Haldeman's watching this, I think at about 10:30 at night, I had already gotten home from the contest from ESM, and I saw, I was there. It was a great competition. I didn't know about the band bus situation until later that night. So then I talked to Maureen Ladd, who oversees the department. We're on top of it to find a solution long term. So we're not in a situation where they could break down. And again, that's not for the students aren't on that, but still, that's where the equipment, but even so, yeah, we're looking into that right now.
Yeah, especially with October coming along, we got a long trip.
Yep.
So, and then last thing, and this is more of a public comment for everyone. We have a great band that is, comes out to the football games, plays the football games and stuff. And I'd just like to see the public give them a little bit more attention, maybe as much attention as they give the football team, because many of those kids are playing in the pep band and other things like that to support the football team, yet I'm hearing F words and things like that from parents while these kids are on the field playing for their entertainment during halftime. I find that a little bit unbecoming of an adult. Whether you're having a separate conversation or not, doesn't matter. You should be paying attention to what's going on in the field, and/or at least have enough respect for the people that want to shut your mouth. Okay, pardon the way I put that, but, you know, it really kind of upsets me that the school districts wants these kids to go out there and perform during home shows and things like that, but yet the public treats them like dirt. So, you know, let's step it up as parents, you know? Let's give these kids some respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bedworth. Mrs. Nickerson?
I wasn't going to let this one drop, but I did let it go over the summer. I had brought up the idea of floating subs. I really liked, you know, dreaming big.
Is your
nice-
speaker on? I can't.
Yeah, crank that up.
Crank it up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. So we talked about floating subs back in June. Ideally, I'd like to see a floating sub in every building. I understand that that may be not feasible at the moment, even though I would support it. But you did mention with city having some kind of program there. So can you just tell us some options
Yes.
through them?
So what Ms. Nickerson is referring to is last school year, we talked about the fact that sometimes it's very difficult to get substitute teachers.
All the time.
Yeah, and it's an issue in every district that I've ever worked at, and it still is an issue across all of the county. So I had brought up in a superintendent chiefs meeting last year, I said, is there any way that this could be a BOCES employee and we can utilize this service, because it is an issue, and then it would become a shared service, and we would get a substantial amount back in aid on that. So Chris was looking into that and what it would entail. We haven't got a response yet. That is one of the things that I have on on the agenda.
What about our district looking into it, though? I understand
So-
we have benefits and all that, but
Cost comes out of ours.
Yeah.
I get that. But at
So-
the same time, we need it. And when
Where-
we don't have the subs, we're pulling TAs or we're dividing students
We need
up,
subs
so-
across the board. We need subs, so anybody's watching, we need subs for drivers. Yeah, some people think, oh, we're short, we're trying to get, why are we not? We're trying to save money and not sending these buses out for the sports, and we want to. We're at a massive shortage right now in even our drivers. But getting back to the teaching subs, what that would entail, Syracuse City, actually the first job I ever had, I was a full-time substitute teacher for Fowler High School. So I would go to Fowler, and there was always a teacher that was sick, and I would go into that classroom. Again, where that comes into is paying the benefits. It's pretty substantial. So the district would have to look at that and say, okay, we're going to commit to this. There's a big enough need that we would hire these people, and they would be there every single day to come in to do that. Where you run into some issues there is sometimes those subs quickly get teaching jobs. So that's an issue that would always happen, and it happened then with me at the city of Syracuse. I was that, and then a month later I was a teacher. So to try to do it for consistency purposes, also, you struggle with that. It's hard to just get anybody. But we're still looking at what that would actually mean. A, how do we recruit for that? How do we keep them in that position as a long-term TA? I'm sorry, a long-term sub assigned to the district. But then we want to be able to provide actual dollars to the board on what that would actually look like regarding salary and benefits, because they would be an employee and they would come in. Could there be a chance that they wouldn't be needed that day? We could find something for them to do, but that's something I want to get you guys the numbers.
Okay.
So Maureen, make note of that. I want to see what it would cost us to do something like that, salary, benefits, the whole 9 yards, if we were to go in that direction.
Chance, what buildings were you thinking of? All buildings?
Oh, I mean, ideally, I would love to see all buildings. I know that that's not feasible to start out. So a floating sub, whether it was 1 position, 2 positions, 3 positions, like you're saying, you report to whether it's here or wherever, and be dispersed out. Right.
Is that it?
I mean, I can keep going.
So is the concern that you guys start paying benefits after they're sub for 30 days in a row or 60 days in a row? Does the same thing apply for a TA if you reduce a TA as a sub, or can you not do that?
Well then, yeah, no, it comes down to certification as well. So just so I'm right, are you asking could you put a TA for a classroom teacher?
For an emergency sub or something? Because, I mean, you kind of do it already, right?
Sometimes we have to do that, where we have to put them in there. Yeah, absolutely. If it's something long term, if it's not a day-to-day thing, then we absolutely would be in violation of that. But that's another great point that I'm glad you bring up, is that we have to tell Chris Todd every time we have somebody in long-term that's not certified. And there are some positions that we just went through this with the German teacher. Luckily, we found somebody, but it becomes increasingly difficult to be able to find somebody that's certified. So we exhaust it. But at the same time, we're making sure that if somebody comes in that is certified, they get that spot. And that's where a couple of years ago, Phil, remember when you brought that up the first time? We made sure that that's the case. That if somebody becomes available that has certification, they take that spot. Yeah. It is something to think about. And we can get you guys numbers, and if that's the direction that the board is looking to do, we will show you all the numbers to say, is this something that you guys want to invest in? I wish I could say that the sub problem will go away. We raised the money for subs. We just raised the money for sub bus drivers as well. Hopefully that puts a dent in it, but if you look at the other schools in our county that have raised the sub pay, it didn't.
Right.
So it's just a massive shortage right now, just in teachers in general. We used to get like 75 to 100 applicants in this district when there was teaching openings, and now sometimes it can be down to 5. So I talked to colleges, their numbers of teachers going into their colleges have dwindled down.
I think just the idea of the floating sub too, just knowing that is an actual position, might entice somebody to stay in that position. You know what I mean? I mean, it'd be ideal if we could have one in every building, where there was a floating sub at Hastings, at Brewerton, Cole High School, where every day they just went to that building. I know we couldn't start off realistically like that. That would be what I would like to see.
Most
we could
would
get-
want a regular full-time job. If they have to have the certification of a teacher, it's very rare, and they're going to be coming and reporting in every day. So it's not like some people like subbing, because then they could say, I'll come today, I'm going to take a couple days off. This would literally mean that they're going to be here every single day in the floating sub capacity. We can look into it,
It
and we
wouldn't
can,
hurt
because
to try.
it does exist in some districts, absolutely.
Well, so since it's been, and you actually asked the question if the board wanted to, so I have a two-part question. One, without officially voting on it, is the board interested enough that we would want Mr. Colabufo and his administration to come back with some options, some numbers around it? And if that's the case, then we would, the second part of that, if we are interested in that, then what, from Mr. Colabufo, what's a reasonable time to have that? Because obviously it needs to fit into, gathering that data would have to fit in with everything else they have going on. So is anyone opposed to asking the superintendent to come back with some sort of information on that and make a presentation on the possibility?
No, I would just not want them to spend, oodles and oodles of time on it. Put together some simple, math, if you will, and at least give us a.
Yeah, because to me, the
Hold on.
analysis could be is how many days do you have, or you need a sub? What are the dollars that you're spending? And is there a need? If you have, 180 teaching days, and you needed a sub 165 of those days, and it cost you X amount of dollars, would it be beneficial to have that person around for that extra 20 days? To me, it'd be a pretty easy, quick thing if you had the information to look at it. And
Maureen?
to me, if you're full with teachers, but you have somebody that's looking for a teaching position that's certified, but you could give them a long-term sub to get their foot in the door on somebody that you could, you'd like to at least
Right.
check out.
Feeder
I think
line,
it would be another positive effect to it. And if-
No, I was just going to throw some in here. It's not going to take any time to put money to it, because you really don't know what the money is. But give or take, we run between, I'd say like $65,000 and $80,000 for a full-time position, depending on whether they're going to take a full package of family benefits or a single plan. So that's going to be your range, because you're going to go with a certified position. It's going to be the creation of a position. It wouldn't really be a sub. It would be a floating position, a teacher. So, I mean, that would just be what it would be. You would just be adding positions into the budget that weren't established for a specific classroom that they would just float.
And I'm not confident it would address our sub issue. Is that a fair, and I won't even ask you the answer. That's my opinion, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair assumption. We talk about it all the time. All districts have the same issues that we do. We substantially raised our pay to be the highest in the county last year. It did not change the situation as far as the need at all. I think it has more to do with people want to sub or they want a full-time position. And if they want a full-time position, they get one. And if they don't and they want to sub, then they pick and choose when they want to work. I mean,
And different things that you see on the news and that there's a teacher shortage across the country. So, I mean, it's not something that's just significant for us.
and just to the point, Steve, of your other question, we have many people placed all the time that are long-term cover leaves. So that gives us a good idea of how they do in the classroom. So most people that we hire have done either a full year cover leave or have done some type of a long-term situation with us. So the administrators have a pretty good idea of.
If we did this with
what they
one,
are.
even if we did this with two, because certification becomes an issue, you're talking about two people. This issue is far greater than that. Now, it would benefit that person, there's no doubt about it, and those two classrooms that the person would be in there. But that doesn't even put a drop in the bucket of how many subs that we have. I could fill this binder with how many subs we had last year, and then some. So to like what Tim had said, it's a move in the direction of satisfying those two rooms. But Maureen, how many subs would you say that we have a day district-wide? That was not staged.
Wasn't. This is a thing I carry around because I thought we were going to talk about it at the reorg meeting, and it's still in my folder. In the 16-17 school year, we had a total of 6,117 jobs. So that's days times hundreds of employees.
6,100 sub-days?
Yes. And remember, you're counting all of their professional development days,
Yeah,
all the
I
days that
understand.
they're out. Special ed teachers are on CSE days. I mean, there's tons of reasons that they need subs. It's not necessarily that they're out. And we had a no-fill rate of about 11.3%. So we do place a lot of subs. We have a lot of people, a lot of units that work.
So on average, we had 34 subs a day? If I just take that divided, simple math.
I would
not-
say
not
easily.
Easily.
34
And-
subs a day.
And remember, we have 340 teachers.
Understand, okay.
The year before, it was 10% no-fill. And so we paid more and had a higher no-fill rate.
I believe it was about $740,000 that we paid in subs last year. Oh, 344,000 was teachers, right?
Right, and so I guess part of the conversation is, because I like the idea, but as you think about it more, with the need as great as it is, let's say we were even able to do this with 4 full-time positions. For just those 4 positions, you've quadrupled the cost, that's the rough math, as opposed to paying the daily rate for someone to come in. And yet you still have the same issue with everything else. So point is, it sounds like a rough one. But in the in-between, I was mentioning to Mr. Calabufo, and he seemed comfortable with, he'll come back to our next board meeting, which is actually going to be October 2nd, and just with an update and some information, and then we can take it from
And
there.
just one more comment on that. I understand that the 1, 2, or 3 positions, if they were created, isn't going to fix everything. But there's been many a times, and I don't have a child at the high school, but I do have one at the middle school level and one in elementary. And there's been many times that you've walked into an elementary building and they're short 4 staff members that day. So is it going to fix everything? No, but it might take that emergent need in a building in a particular day and kind of give a little bit more flexibility or buy some time for staff member to start rearranging.
I just have one comment on that. If are all of our subs, those 6,000, were they all certified? Then why would we mandate that a floating sub be certified? I'm just wondering, is that a requirement?
No, but when we say a floating sub, it's not really a sub. What she's saying, it's somebody that would be coming working every day, and if they work beyond a certain amount of days and they're not a certified person, then that's an issue with the state.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hamstrung by the regulations. If
Okay.
we were to do this, they would have to be certified.
Because it would actually be hiring teachers. It wouldn't be hiring. See, you can come in and be non-certified if it's on a day here, day there. But once it becomes an actual position, and Phil, remember, that's the situation that we went with, was we had people just doing this day here, day there, and then the teacher found out that they're going to be out longer and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and the person that had been filling in wasn't certified. And that we really, a couple years ago, made it where we need to make sure that if somebody did apply, even if that person was awesome with kids in the classroom that was uncertified, the person that was certified had to get that position above the person who was great long-term, because that's the state.
Okay. So they have to be off for a day. After so many days, they have to not take a sub job if they're not certified?
Correct. They
Okay.
cannot be after a certain amount of time in the same classroom.
Okay.
So then that brings this
But
to
could
mind.
we do
then.
like a 30-day floating sub?
Well, if we did have a floating sub, this is something I have to talk to Chris Todd, who's part of State Ed. Could we have a floating person do this? But I've never heard of a district hiring an actual full-time teacher. I mean, I don't even know what that would look. Would it be towards a probationary position? Because we can't hire a probationary person if they're not certified.
One of the other things that's just recently come up is when you are initially certified, you have to have so many years' experience in the right certification area. We'd also have to make sure that the person that we were hiring and the positions that we are putting them in counts toward their permanent certification and not against it. And that's relatively new, so I would have to really check into that as well, because that's something we didn't used to have to deal with that we do now.
So I can check with, like Andy had said, I can check with Chris Todd. I can have all of these questions answered. I could also go back to, is he willing to make this a BOCES position? And if that's the case, let's go with like 10 of them. If it's 86% 8 on, you know what I mean? That maybe that's how we can address the issue.
So to wrap it up, the administration will come back at the next meeting on October 2nd with an update, and then, I mean, we're going to keep it on the agenda until we come to resolution, right? Because it's either a go or a no-go.
Sure.
So let's talk about it until we've...
I totally understand the need. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's something that needs to be talked about.
All right, thank you. And just so everyone knows, I'm not putting Ms. Parada on the spot. I mentioned to her that I would give her the opportunity. So, Ms. Parada, is there anything you'd like to discuss? All right, thank you.
I don't think so.
All right, thanks. Mr. Patch? Great. Mr. Buddy?
I have nothing, thank you.
Madam Vice President?
Well, I just want to say the opening day was a lot of fun, seeing all the kids and the teachers. And I went to Hastings Mallory after we went to the middle school. And some of the classes, Kelly Foster, who was at Millard Hawk, is now at Hastings. So some of the kids that I volunteer through Oasis we're going to Hastings now, and a couple of them were like so excited to see me, and they were like, "Oh, here's a familiar face," and it was just a lot of fun helping the kids off the bus and getting them to their classrooms, and I thoroughly enjoyed the day.
Thank you. All right, and I do have a couple things. Lori covered opening day. It was great, and just a great start to the school year, so kudos to our entire staff on just everything they've done to have a great start to the year. And I do want to mention, Mr. Colbufo may get nervous for a second, but we had a little hiccup with some access cards for teachers getting into buildings and stuff. But here's the positive I want to mention about it is it's incredible. I just wish the community could see the number of staff that were reaching out because they're looking to get into their classroom at 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. Not on a school day, but to get ready for the school year. So again, just kudos to all of our staff. It's a often thankless job, and so tonight anyway.
Can I just follow up on that point? Because I have asked this before Tom's time. We know when people come in and out of the building, teachers, correct?
Correct.
So what's the rationale for not allowing our teacher professionals or coaching professionals, whatever it is, to not have 24/7 entrance into the building? If there's an issue, and this is what I've heard before, and again, with all due respect, it was before Tom that I brought it up, but I just don't know if there's an issue. We know who was there when they were there.
Here's what it was. So we corrected the situation because everything got shifted back a half hour, but still, they're going to be able to still be in there because we're going to have our custodians there anyway, just in case if there was something to happen, the custodian's there. If there was a spill or something wasn't safe in a hallway, we just didn't want the teachers to walk down, fall down, hurt themselves. If there was, let's say, I don't know, it happened in our schools a lot where there's flooding, and if a teacher got in there before the custodian, they could fall down. But the other things that some teachers have even said was, and other people have said that they accidentally forgot the door open. Oh my gosh, they didn't realize it didn't latch right. And I guess having the custodian is just one more line. And that's how it was at my other districts that I worked at, was they wanted to make sure that when the custodians go, they check every window. They check, because what they don't want is a teacher coming into the building, a window is left open, and then somebody is in there waiting for them. And that has happened in school districts, and there's an assault. It's not a trust issue, it's a liability, and we don't want a teacher to be alone in a building and something to happen to them.
And
Once in a while,
there's also some issues with the heat too, because the heat goes off at a certain time, and teachers are in there and freezing, and so.
And that's the other thing, is we have to kind of determine in the winter, when do we want to make it where we're not cranking the heat, that we can lower that down a bit. But again, if that's an issue and teachers are like, hey, I'm staying a couple hours after, then we can adjust to look possibly in that zone or something like that.
So two other things I want to bring up at our next meeting, October 2nd, just giving the heads up to everyone. Between now and then, I or Mrs. Wood will forward to you. At our next meeting, we need to give guidance to our voting delegate for the convention on 32 resolutions that are happening. So I certainly hope we don't want to discuss all 32 at that meeting. So we'll get you the information ahead of time. If there's any that you're interested in giving guidance on, then we can just focus on those. The other ones we'll just assume that, and we'll put this all in an email, but it will either, a silence on a resolution says that we support it. So we're going to be discussing the ones that we have issues with or that we would not want our voting delegate to support.
This is the convention in Lake Placid?
It is, yeah. And we have 4, Mrs. Nickerson, Ms. Wood, myself, and Mr. Colabufo that are attending. And the voting really is important. There's some good stuff that came out of last year that they've made some pretty good significant movement on in the last 12 months. So I don't want to not do that. But that'll take some time at the next meeting, so I'm giving you the heads up. And then the final thing is comment/question for Mr. Colabufo. And again, I know he's aware of this, but I think it's important that the board is aware so that if you need anything from us, we can do this. But I know that there was some concern. We have 2 executed lease agreements now with city, both at CSI and at the middle school. And at the middle school, we have students that are attending there from city, and there was some concern on the first day about paperwork, medications, all those sorts of things. So I'm mentioning only so that, is there anything we can do, because we do have a role to interact with the city board if needed. And I'm not bringing this up, this is not like a secret, oh, there's a big problem, but is there anything we can do to help support that? Because it's important, I think, that
it is. So the lease agreement, I guess it comes down to interpretation about with the nursing. When I did have a conversation with District Superintendent, the DS, Chris Todd, it was thought to believe that we were going to get support on a part-time basis for a nurse. But then maybe a week after that, I was told that that's not what it meant in the lease agreement. And so we just had a great conversation. Chris was very receptive. Mr. Ty was very receptive. Was that 2 days ago, I believe, Friday? I believe we had a meeting with him, conference call, and he's looking in to see, is it, are there 15 kids or are there 2 kids that require medication and whatnot? But then also the handing of a bag without labels and what the medication, that should not be on our nurse. Again, the confusion breakdown was I was originally made to believe that we would have somebody, so it changed how I would have met with Nicole or Maureen overseeing the nurses would have, if Mrs. Ransom, if we would have known that it was going to be on us. Right. So we're working through all of that right now. We're waiting to hear back from Chris on the support he can give us regarding the situation with the nursing.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right, so you'll let us know if you need anything, but it sounds like it's handled. Great. So with that, we'll bring to a close the open forum. And before we move to any motions, I just want to make sure everyone's aware. In our first motion, when someone makes it to accept G, item G2 is going to be basically a contingent, which is the paperwork that we were given on this need some corrections as far as the amounts, but it's important that we can at least approve of these groups, and that's about the student overnight trips.
Just a quick, I studied this a little bit while you guys went into the executive session. On the music department program, the part over on the district, the $5,685.75, if you go to the little star on top of 7, this is the cost for the band truck, the buildings and ground truck, and the rental truck, and the drivers for the equipment and the instruments. So that, so it has nothing to do with.
The tickets
Right.
where it was
So the
put
other
on there.
piece over in the other, that's the tickets. And then under the district, he's putting that there because that's probably what, an estimate of what it's gonna cost the district for all the transportation of our
So the
equipment.
total dollar amount that we're about to vote on is correct, but as long as they resubmit paperwork with line items where they need to be, we're good to go?
I think they are where they need to be. That's what,
That's what she's saying, a little bit.
that's what I'm saying. I think you're good. That does,
Okay, as
that
long
is
as-
gonna be a district cost. It's gonna be the band truck, the buildings and ground truck, and a rental truck. Our drivers have to drive those vehicles.
And they're gonna be gone overnight. I think it's 2 nights.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
So I make a motion to accept G1 and 2
I'll second it.
as it is currently stated.
I'll second that.
And can I add one more for G3? I believe that that's correct too. I studied that a little bit. What they're using the sheet differently. They're trying to let the board know that each student is going to have to pay $260. Do you see what I mean? So if you take the 260 times the 40, that's the $10,400. That's the cost of the trip.
But the dollar amount we're seeing is what we're approving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes, but they're telling you that there's 40 students going, and that each student, it's gonna cost $260. So I think you could interpret it that
So,
that's
So
the
the-
cost of the trip is $10,400.
yeah, and they didn't put that total on there.
Correct. I think that's what I'm saying. They're using the sheet, they're trying to tell you how much each student has to pay.
So it's
That
good,
would
and
be
I
my
would still,
interpretation.
so first of all, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Bedworth. And so now with discussion, all I would say is I still think, at least for our reference, we need corrected paperwork at least on the second one, because it's not showing the amount. And it may be semantics, but I think it's important that we do that, so.
So we'll work on that with them to change for the running one, the cross-country.
Any other discussion?
So,
on
just to
G?
be clear, on the cross-country team, they're asking for $430?
No.
Okay, that's what needs to be clarified.
Oh,
You may have a total understanding of it.
They're
That's what
estimating that
says.
it's gonna cost about $430.
Yes.
Yes.
Total. from
For the
our-
district.
Okay.
Correct.
And if that's what that means, then I have no issue with it.
Yeah, because that's what is written here in the green sheets too, is cost of the district is $430.
Yep. That's correct. For the cross-country one.
For the cross-country,
cross-country,
right.
yeah.
And then, yeah, so the green sheets, what I'm reading on the green sheets are correct.
The amounts on the green sheets are correct, the document that,
Paperwork.
yeah, that,
This stuff.
what we're
completed
actually
paperwork.
approving is the paperwork as well.
Right,
so
right, but-
there's some correction that needs to come in, but we can still approve tonight, that's
Okay.
fine.
And then have it corrected.
Yep.
So it's looks the right way.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting item G in its entirety? And it is unanimous. I have
Make a motion to
for
accept-
item H.
H, and we can do it all, I believe, in its entirety.
Yes, you can.
We can. Sorry, where was the second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bedworth is the second. Any discussion on H?
Only one comment on H, that to remind the folks here and on the stream that there's no meeting on the 25th of September.
Yep, and that is because with the holiday this month and Columbus Day next month, we end up having back-to-back, and so Mr. Colabufo was comfortable with us streamlining that down to one meeting. So October 2nd, there will be a change to our calendar. have to use your microphone. So there's some discussion. What's the?
Ms. Nickerson was referring to H3, approval of internal claims audit report, where it says encloses a copy of the internal claims audit report. Please contact school business manager Maureen Ladd if you have any questions or would like further information and you wanted to know.
No. Didn't we delay that until the October 2nd meeting?
No, that was, are you talking the external claim?
What was,
I thought we signed it.
okay.
The audit committee is meeting at October 2nd. Right. Right, but this was for the internal plan. I believe that was external plan.
That's different than the.
Yeah.
We have an executive committee.
Correct.
Okay, and I had one question. With H5A and C, the elementary school library books, are those earmarked to be donated anywhere specific, or are they just being discarded?
We always get this question. We have a couple of places that will come and look at them, and if they want them, they are happy, we're happy for them to take them, but otherwise, they're discarded. They're very old and used.
Okay, because it was my understanding that some of them are just duplicates and there's some that are good books. My only concern is with all the recent natural disasters that I was down at the public library this afternoon and they're sending books down to Houston and down to Florida. And if there's school districts in need in those areas, I would hate to throw away books that
And we could try
serve.
to do that. Generally, the two people that we deal with are the summer rec program. Sometimes they'll take them. And I want to say it's the Lions Club, but it's through, it used to be through, not Mr. Kronk, but the other gentleman, Frank. He used to take some if they needed them.
Okay,
But no, that's a great idea.
We can try to look into that, too.
okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting item H in its entirety? It's unanimous. Can I get a motion to accept item I?
I'll make the motion in its entirety.
Mr. McCarthy? Mrs. Nickerson, any discussion?
I just want to make one comment on the position of, we're recommending a dean. I have been steadfast since the day we eliminated a position. I have not wavered on that. I know there's a ton of needs out there. I respect Mr. Creamer's comments, but I have been unwavering on the need for that role in this school, and I truly believe it. So, hence my support of that. So, thank you.
I also want to just recognize, if I can, Vicki Dale is the president of the Teaching Assistants Unit, and she worked really, really hard on the package that was put forward regarding the contracts.
We should vote on it first.
Oh, that's probably true.
So being that there's no further discussion.
We already voted on it. It's under H.
Oh, H. Okay, well, let's finish on it. Sorry.
Okay, you were wrong. Say that to the 50 million people.
All those in favor of accepting I in its entirety? It's approved. Mr. McCarthy motion, Mrs. Nickerson seconded.
So you were right. Fair enough.
What was that last part again?
You were right.
No, fair enough. No. Anything else you want to share?
That's good.
We are done with our business. Reminder, the next meeting is October 2nd. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Mr. McCarthy
Second.
with the motion, Mrs. Wood with the second. Sorry, she beat you. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
You were right.